Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. On today's episode, we're diving deep into a topic that lies at the heart of success, self-trust. I'm excited to be joined once again by Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, who has been doing incredible work with the business of happiness, exploring how mindset shapes our impact. Last time we tackled the challenges of self-doubt, but today we're flipping the script to explore the power of self-trust, its role in long-term success, and practical ways to cultivate it in both our personal and professional lives. Let's get into it. Are you feeling the squeeze from declining starts and cash flow as costs continue to rise? Building on their industry-leading patient acquisition, insurance management, and collections solution, OrthoFi is delivering groundbreaking innovations to keep your practice thriving. OrthoFi's latest feature, iMax, allows you to maximize every insurance claim submission, adding tens of thousands of dollars to your annual production. Plus, with the game-changing combo of FPT10 and third-party financing, OrthoFi is making it even easier for patients to say yes to treatment while ensuring steady cash flow for your practice. OrthoFi's commitment to your success in today's evolving orthodontic landscape is why I recommend them to my clients, and right now is the best time to get started. Visit startmoresmiles.com and use promo code HeyDocs to get 50% off your implementation. Hey Docs, on this podcast, I talk about a lot of different ways you can set your practice apart. But here's one that might surprise you. Maybe you haven't thought about it before, but the equipment you use can make a big difference, not just for the patient experience, but for you and your team too. That's why I want to let you know about a new line of orthodontic equipment from ADEC. I visited their headquarters in Oregon earlier this year to take a sneak peek for myself, and I have to say, I was impressed. ADEC has manufactured award-winning dental equipment for 60 plus years, and they're bringing that same level of excellence to ortho. From comfortable, compact patient chairs to a versatile workstation and delivery to ergonomic dental stools, ADEC orthodontic equipment is designed for a smooth and easy workflow. Day after day, patient after patient, see the difference it can make for your practice. Click the link in our show notes to learn more about ADEC Orthodontic Solutions. Tarryn, it's great to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me, Jill. It's so much fun always.
Yes. So since we last talked on our last podcast, I would love to know what you've been working on, what you've been up to recently.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
I am very excited about an upcoming retreat I'm holding. So that's what I've been working on. And ironically, a retreat for women in dentistry. And one of the things that I have recognized in my journey is how important community is. Having that safe space to share and grow and have that vulnerability, but then also having a community to reach out to who has shared language. Yes. And when we make that connection with other women who have experienced the same things we've gone through, there's just this understanding of our shared experience and then growing through it together for greater happiness and fulfillment in our profession. It is so powerful. And being able to pull yourself out of your everyday, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Giving yourself time and space to work on yourself. I'm very excited about my upcoming Empower Her retreat.
So the last time you were on the show, we talked a lot about self-doubt and the effect it can have on our impact to our success in our person, our success, maybe how we are interacting with other people. And what I wanted to do today was switch gears and talk a little bit about self-trust. So we were talking about self-doubt. Now let's talk a little bit about self-trust. And I would love it if you could maybe just start off by defining what that means and what that means to you when you're thinking about it, and how critical is to us as owners, as leaders in our practices, as just people living our lives into our success within our life.
Yeah, thank you. This is really powerful. Let's differentiate between self-doubt and that lack of self-belief. So I think last time we were talking, we were saying that's really what self-doubt is, right? You don't believe in yourself and it's a lack of self-belief. So how is that different from self-trust, a lack of self-trust? And so if we were to think of self-doubt as a lack of self-belief, I think a lack of self-trust is a lack of self-worth. So if we can just hold those two differences for a moment. So on the one hand, not believing that you're capable of something, but when it comes to self-trust, it's not believing in your self-worth. The truth about self-trust, you can have one and not the other. You can have great self-belief and not great self-trust or self-worth. A lot of dentists end up in that category of I really can do anything I put my mind to. I really believe in my ability to grow. But what I often hear from clients is, especially who come to me and say, I just don't know why I'm not feeling happy, or I don't really know if dentistry is my thing. That did I wake up in this profession and I realized, shoot, I didn't choose this, but I don't know what else I would want for myself in my life. I don't know what direction I'll go in. Is this practice the one I want to be in? Or is this relationship the one I want to be in? When clients come to me and say that to me, like, how do I figure it out? And I'll say to them, what do you want? And how often I hear, I don't know.
I can believe that. I believe that.
And what that tells me is that for a long time, they've not given themselves permission to trust how they feel or to trust their worthiness to feel the feelings that they're feeling. And the truth is, and I think everyone, when I say this, they're like, oh my God, if you cannot trust your own feelings, you will never be able to trust anyone else. And as a leader, what a critical component. What a critical skill set to have in order to delegate. If you're the practice owner in someone else's hands, we can't do everything by ourselves. But knowing how to trust others requires us to learn how to trust ourselves. If you can learn to trust yourself, you can handle anything. That's when life gets exciting, because that means you can't make a mistake. If you trust yourself deeply enough, you can take a chance on that new idea. You can have fun with it. You can change things up in your practice. And if it doesn't work, okay, I trust myself that I can pivot and move to the next thing. It means you give yourself permission to fail, which is a huge skill set in success. Because we don't get to success by a series of successes. We get there by a series of failures and mistakes. To take that leap, we need to foster self-trust deeper than self-belief. It's the feeling of, all right, if something were to happen tomorrow, I trust that I would know to do next. And if it's the wrong choice, I trust that I choose again.
So when you're talking about self-trust, is it the same as self-confidence? And if it is not, how do we decipher the two?
It's a great question. I see them differently. And I see self-trust more about trusting your feelings. So this is where linear-minded dentists get really uncomfortable, because what we've done for a very long time, if you're anything like me, is practice how to separate ourselves from our feelings. Self-trust means trusting how you feel, very different from confidence. Self-trust is trusting that my feelings are worthy, that I am worthy to feel this way, that I'm valid to feel this way. When we lack self-trust, we think someone else outside of us has the answer. Someone else knows better, as opposed to a lack of self-belief where we are looking for someone else to tell us we're doing the right thing. When we have a lack of self-trust, we're not trusting our emotions or directional compass. Nobody knows you. like you do. No one knows what lights you up. No one knows what instills fear. No one knows what your desires are. And it's not possible for someone outside to have those answers. Developing self trust actually requires getting in touch with your emotions and making them okay, uncomfortable ones and celebratory ones.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having a bad day, giving yourself permission to have a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling angry towards a patient, that is okay. You are human. And when we tell ourselves, I can't feel this way, I shouldn't, there's that word that has a lot to do with self trust, the should. Anytime we use that should or shouldn't, we're eroding our self trust, telling ourselves the way I feel is wrong. We're making ourselves wrong and fostering that sense of, I can't be trusted. My feelings, desires, dreams can't be trusted. It becomes about getting comfortable with your emotions and trusting that your emotions not only are valid, but that you are going to be okay processing them.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're so afraid of feeling certain emotions. I know anger is one of them. And it makes a lot of sense because many times in our upbringing, we've experienced somebody who has expressed anger towards us as unsafe, which makes so much sense. As a kid, there's a big man yelling loudly because he's very angry, your physical body is in danger. Creating that association of anger to lack of safety made sense at 5 years old.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense as an adult, as a grown adult who has so much empowerment over her choices, for us to maintain that fear of a very normal emotion. It takes work to get back to that place. But as an adult, if someone is angry, I can remove myself. I can ask that patient to leave. I can create a energetic bubble around myself, allow him to feel all his feelings, realize it has nothing to do with me, attached to the danger to my body if he's not threatening me, right?
Yep.
He can be angry and I can still be safe, right? Giving ourselves permission, feel that anger ourselves. Not take it out on our patients, know the appropriate place and time to process that emotion, but the critical importance of giving ourselves the place and time to process that emotion. Anger is one of those where we're afraid we'll end up being angry, like becoming an angry person. If I allowed myself to feel angry, am I going to turn into an angry person? Or am I going to start abusing people, taking it out on people? Anger is such a natural human emotion. If you allow yourself to feel it, it eventually dissipates. Like grief.
Yeah.
When we prevent ourselves from feeling grief, keeps it alive. It's like pushing inflated ball, like one of those beach balls, and trying to keep it underwater. It keeps wanting to pop up, and we're fighting and we're fighting. But if we just allow that beach ball to come on up, explode, cry, scream, slam a medicine ball, throw things at the wall at a rage room. When we give ourselves permission to feel our feelings, we get to the other side and can come back to that team member or spouse, having processed the emotion and not needing to take it out on them. It's the opposite of what we thought from our childhood experience. So to get to the point of how we've developed this lack of self-trust by making our emotions wrong under the guise of it's not professional or I shouldn't be feeling this way, making ourselves wrong. And immediately when we make ourselves wrong, we're eroding that sense of self-trust.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. We'd get to the end of the day and say, I don't know what I want in my life. I don't know what brings me happiness, because we've been making ourselves feel like however I'm feeling is not the right way. I shouldn't be feeling this way.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about, because I don't think that for most people, I could be wrong, but I don't think most of us really take time to take accountability for what we're feeling. We just push on by them a lot of times. Like you said, I shouldn't feel that way. I know this situation is frustrating, but I need to drop it and move on. I shouldn't let myself sit under the weight of that. Not that we want to live in there, but it's a deep thought to think about. Having self-trust is different than self-confidence. And that's what I'm hearing from you, because you can look at a lot of people who seem very self-confident, but may not actually trust themselves. So they've got this vibrato of confidence, and they're exuding themselves in all these ways. And yet I think a lot of times you probably would talk to somebody, but it's almost like that's that fake facade out there that or at least that's what I'm taking from what you're saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing you reminded me of is this sense of self-trust is a deep emotion. It is something you take home with you, as opposed to that facade, that presentation of self-confidence, right? And self-trust, if you almost imagine putting it in a sentence like, I am confident in my ability to prepare a class 2 prep or a crown prep. But do I trust myself to be ready for anything that goes wrong? Do I trust myself to feel the feelings I need to feel? Do I trust myself to know what I need? One of the things, another place where we tend to erode our self-trust is, and this is so common in dentistry, we don't listen to our own bodies. So one of the things that I noticed very early on in dentistry is I'd get to the end of the day and I would be dying to go to the bathroom. Just like I'm going to burst, like I can't get there fast enough. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't get here in minutes. This meant all day long I was ignoring my body. Or I'd get to the pantry at 5:30 starving. I didn't get there within 10 minutes. All day long I was ignoring my body. And I'm talking about now very listening to your body in one way, but also paying attention to how you feel emotionally. Giving yourself permission to touch base with yourself. When we're pushing through the day, ignoring ourselves, ignoring our bodies, we're telling our bodies that you're not worthy of listening to. Your needs are not as important as the patient in front of you, or the schedule, or your emails. And imagining yourself in relationship with yourself. So just for a moment, how do we build trust with another human being? You can put yourself in that situation. In an intimate relationship, or even a relationship with a patient, when a patient has a need, we hear them, we listen, make space for them, and do our best to support them in meeting their needs. Same thing with yourself, is giving yourself that, number one, listening, giving yourself space and quiet. We don't take the time to say to ourselves, let me just be quiet with myself. Let me see what I need right now in this moment. And then when you hear and listen, what do I need? Taking action on it.
Yeah.
That's what builds and fosters self-trust. The opposite erodes self-trust.
Yeah. That's great. Let's talk. You're starting to do it already. Let's talk about steps or habits that individuals can develop to build or strengthen their.
Yeah. So I love this. I love this idea. And I'm going to take a step back for a moment and just talk about why. So I mentioned before that when we can't trust others, if we don't trust ourselves, when you have self-trust, you can handle anything. You don't have to play by anybody's rules. You can stop seeing patients at 3:30 to go to a baseball game, or take a month off. The world gets more exciting because you're trusting yourself. Lack of self-trust leads to exhaustion. If you're not paying attention to your body,
Absolutely,
you're getting exhausted. It can also support people pleasing, because if we don't trust ourselves, we're trusting everybody else. Constantly seeking external support, advice, guidance. And that itself is exhausting, is this perpetual people pleasing. But another thing that lack of self-trust can foster is a need for numbing. So if we're not paying attention to the way we feel, and there's that ball that we're trying to keep underwater, the feelings don't go away. So what we end up doing is trying to escape them by numbing. And numbing can look like many things. It can look like chemical numbing, like alcohol or drugs. As a recovering alcoholic, I didn't know how to regulate those emotions, how to regulate my nervous system, how to listen to my body when it was so stressed after seeing 80 patients in a day and working through lunch. I didn't know how to do it. So I reached for alcohol. Alcohol was a way to calm my nervous system down. It was also a great way to avoid feeling feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I became sober 8 years ago, I got to learn to feel feelings. Like they came hard and fast. I was like, and that was really a wake up to me more about, wow, what have I not been paying attention to? I have been avoiding feeling all these feelings by numbing with alcohol. Not having self-trust can do is keep you in situations that are not good for you. Staying in positions or work or relationships or habit patterns. There's a lot of research to show that the underpinning of addictive patterns really starts with a lack of self-trust, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. So what are ways that we can start fostering that self-trust?
We all know running and growing an orthodontic practice isn't easy, and technology is supposed to help you, but oftentimes your practice management software doesn't. Some of them are even clunky and need lots of third-party add-ons. That's why I recommend Greyfinch to my startup and existing clients, because Greyfinch is different. Greyfinch is an all-in-one web-based platform that saves you time and boosts your client base, productivity, and bottom line, with no downloads or third-party software needed. It even has tools you can't find anywhere else, like televisits, two-way email and text messaging, a patient self-service hub, and much more. Want to see how it can grow your practice? Visit greyfinch.com/Jill Allen and see why countless leading practices have made the switch. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
One of them is making it safe to feel. And that is a journey, especially if you haven't done that for a very long time. But giving yourself, and this is where it's funny that I started out talking about the retreat, because the reason why retreats are so powerful is, I mentioned, they take you out of your regular daily habit pattern, out of your practice, out of your family space, and put you in a whole new space for new perspective. But another thing that it does is it gives you safety of time and space. And just like we create priority for time and space for treating patients or for having meetings or morning huddles, you put that in your schedule. We actually get to schedule time and space to feel our feelings. For me, what that looked like was the car. The car felt like a safe, in the beginning, that felt like a safe space. There was nobody watching me, judging me. Nobody could hear me. I could cry. I could scream. I could feel my feelings. And I actually created with intention that space for myself. And I created time for myself. So it's a beautiful way to transition home, by the way. At the end of the day, creating a space and time, maybe even a little something else that I incorporated was there's a stream, a river between my house and my work. And I just pull over for 15 minutes, give myself that beautiful space and time. But it does take intention. It does take creating that space and time for yourself to give yourself the permission to feel feelings, to just be present with you, not on your phone, not answering emails, not accomplishing, not running another errand, but just checking in with yourself and asking yourself, how do you feel? How do you feel today? Your office manager gave her 2-week notice. How do you feel? Your mom is really sick in the hospital. How do you feel? Get really good at this as leaders because we recognize, or we learn to get good at as leaders. We don't always know. Great leaders check in with their team. How are you feeling? Do you need to process some emotion? That was a really hard procedure we just went through. That patient was having a trauma response, and that was hard to watch. How are you feeling? I'll never forget this. Can I share the story, Jill?
Yeah, of course.
I'll never forget one of my team members was in the ortho world. She was treating a patient, a young man who was on the spectrum, and had such a difficult procedure, and we knew something was going on in there. And he had an erection in the middle of the procedure. And it was so traumatizing for her.
Sure.
It was hard for her to move on. She had all kinds of thoughts about it. She had fears about it. She had assumptions about it. And as a leader, she needs time and space to process that.
Yep.
For her, that was a challenge. Maybe for you, it wouldn't be. Maybe for me, it wouldn't be. But for her, this young woman, that was a challenge for her. We give our team that permission as leaders. We need to give ourselves that. Yes. And especially as leaders who are trying to hold it all together all day long. There are so many during the day that can be triggering or activating, and giving ourselves a moment to just check in with ourselves. And can you imagine the sense of self-trust that fosters? If we go back to that example of imagining a relationship of you with you, giving yourself that moment of, hey, Tarryn, like, that was a hard day. How are you feeling? Do you just want to sit and cry for a few moments? I'm going to create the safe space for you. Imagine my team member. I'm going to create the safe space for you. You did a great job, but do you want to just feel your feelings before you go on to the next patient? Do you want to just feel your feelings, Tarryn, before you go to your family now and you have to put on another hat, being holding space for them? Giving yourself permission to make all your feelings valid.
I'd love that. And I think it is so easy for, you said numbing, but I think for a lot of people just to stuff those feelings. They've got them and we just stuff and we stuff. And your analogy of the ball is so great. Eventually it's going to pop up and it's going to come up. And I can see this in a different light in the sense of my husband being a police officer for 23 years. And that's indicative of their industry is stuff that emotion. Don't talk about it. Don't feel it. You got to move to the next call. You got to move to the next thing. And I can tell you, having been a wife of somebody in that situation, it comes out. It's going to, and I don't want to say, oh, it's just that industry. It comes out for all of us. It's just different. And I think it's easy to be like, oh, of course that's going to be different because they've got a higher stress job or they've got a this or they've got a that. But really everything that you're talking about, I love because we all have emotions that we have to deal with. And I think for the most part, a lot of us don't want to deal with them because of maybe different things, or you hear that voice in your head that says you should be stronger than this. You should always say you're sorry, even if you're not sorry. Those things that, that go on. And so I just love what you're talking about giving ourselves permission to feel and giving ourselves, even if it is truly being like, I'm going to take an extra 15 minutes on my ride home. And I know I've got to do life when I get home, but I need to take 15 minutes just to unpack whatever it is that I'm feeling or that's weighing on me. Because I really do believe what you're saying. It will just help you then get more in tune with yourself and then be like, okay, I recognize this. All right. I know I can work through this. I really love that. That's great.
Yeah. Great. Actually, you reminded me of something else as you were speaking there. Another great practice, by the way, because we were talking about shoulds and how often we hear that language in our own heads. Oh, I should feel that way. I shouldn't feel that way. I should do this. I shouldn't do that. And I have a great alternative for that. When you hear yourself say that, I'm going to offer that you replace the word should with the word choose. I shouldn't feel sad about this. Ask yourself, I choose to feel sad about this. And then you actually can decide, do I choose to? Do I not choose to? And there's a lot of great information in there, but it puts you back in the place of power, and of control and self-trust. I can choose to be sad right now, or right now I choose not to be, but it doesn't put you in a place of victimization or someone else's opinion. It doesn't take away your self-trust. You're choosing to or not choosing to. So for example, in the middle of the day, choose to think about sister who's going through cancer treatment. No, I choose not to. Okay. It's not I should or I shouldn't. It's no one else's opinion. It is a choice I am making in this moment. It doesn't mean I don't give myself time and space to feel my feelings. That's an imperative and something I wish so deeply, Jill, that we taught in dental schools, because it is such a huge component of being a compassionate leader, a successful business owner, a compassionate healthcare provider. To me, there is nothing more important than recognizing your own feelings so that you can see it in the people around you and forgive and give grace and recognize it's not about you. But now we're on to another subject. Going back to the choose, anytime you have that thought, and it's amazing how often that works. Let's say you've told yourself, I want to work out every morning. I need to stretch my body to stay in good shape to be able to continue in this profession. Great. And the morning you wake up and you're lying in bed and you're thinking, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And you're like, I really should. Offer yourself, I choose or I choose not to.
Yes, I love that.
Don't make it wrong. Don't make it wrong. You get to choose. Choose not to, because I tossed and turned all night last night and I really need some extra sleep. Okay, that's your choice. And that, again, fosters that self-trust.
I love that. I love that. That's such a tool I'm going to implement right away, because I definitely find myself being a little bit on that should or shouldn't. And I think putting yourself back in the power position instead of somebody else's voice or somebody else's vision.
Yes. And we offer that grace to our patients, right? But their autonomy is such an important thing with our patients. I'm going to give you all the treatment options and then you get to choose. We deserve to give ourselves that same autonomy.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about how this kind of affects when we've got self-trust that's being challenged, and what that means in somebody who's maybe been working on this, or they're like, okay, I'm recognizing this, but now I'm being challenged with this. And maybe it is that choice component that you're talking about, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So self-trust being challenged means there's a part of you that you haven't quite reconciled with. So anytime that self-trust is like, oh, I don't know if I really trust myself here, you can reflect for a moment that there's a part of you that's still making a part of you wrong. Okay, so bear with me for a moment. You actually don't show up as you only. You actually show up as all the versions of you. So I'm going to use myself as an example. 5-year-old Tarryn, 12-year-old Tarryn, 24-year-old Tarryn, 34-year-old Tarryn, they all are a part of who I am today. And if I make 34-year-old Tarryn wrong, then I'm harboring a resentment. I'm eroding that self-trust. I talked a little bit about my addiction journey. That feels very easy to judge. That feels very appropriate to judge. It feels very socially acceptable to judge and to make her wrong. Recognizing and giving compassion and love for that beautiful girl who didn't know any better. She just didn't know. She was trying so hard. She was working so hard for everyone else and burning the candle at both ends, and didn't know how to regulate her nervous system. She was getting the queen of working all day and having 2 martinis at night just to get to sleep, and getting up at 4:30 in the morning to work off the hangover. And she was trying so hard. And I can fall in love with her now and not make her wrong. I can love her for who she was trying. It was coming from a place of love, really trying so hard for everyone else. She was trying to be the best mom. She was trying to be the best leader. She just didn't have the tools and the practices. And so learning to forgive ourselves, all parts of ourselves, all versions of ourselves, and recognizing that she grew through that. And then I can get back to that deeper sense of self-trust. So I find that any time in my life, or recognizing for my clients where they're challenged with that, I just can't trust how I feel, then either they're numbing how they feel and they're not giving themselves the opportunity. And it's not always with alcohol. Let me be clear. We can numb and avoid feeling our feelings in so many ways. And I've tried them all. With food, with excessive exercise, with distraction, with Netflix, we can avoid feeling feelings and dissociating from our feelings in a multitude of ways. And only you know if you're doing it. When we're challenged with self-trust, I find it's either we're actually avoiding feeling that feeling because it feels scary. So someone might feel like, I don't know if dentistry is actually the right decision. I don't know if this was a good choice, but let me not think about it. Let me just keep showing up because I invested thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in this, and blood, sweat, and tears, and decades of my life. So let me avoid this. That is a pattern of when we start eroding our self-trust. So either we're avoiding feeling our feelings, or we've held on to making ourselves wrong, some version of ourselves in our past where we really still harbor a lot of self-judgment and self-blame.
Yeah. Again, so deep. And there's just a lot to think about and process through that. And I just love that vision of, especially as we get older, our different ages of ourself coming together and being okay to love ourselves at all the different stages that we've been at. And we were making the best decisions that we could, or maybe sometimes not the best decision, but we were doing the best that we could do with what we had for where we were. And doggone it, we're on the other side of, for good or for bad, where we're at now. And I just love that. So let's talk a little bit, switch it just a little bit, and think about this from self-trust as a leader. As you've been sprinkling this in a lot, bringing it back to us on a professional level. But let's talk a little bit about how really harnessing this allows a doctor or whoever you are within your business life to really be able to, what kind of an impact can that have if you can harness this self-trust and have the ability to inspire and guide other people, if we can just kind of be able to really understand this process?
Yeah, beautiful question. So let's bring it back to something I said earlier. If you cannot trust your own feelings, then how are you ever going to trust anyone else? And that, I think, is just an underpinning of being a good leader, right? So trusting yourself and your feelings normalizes it and makes you not wrong, gives you permission to make others not wrong. So number one, when you can trust others, we talked about delegating, right? Putting that beautiful baby in someone else's hands and saying, I really trust you with my patients into the office. I really trust you with representing our office on social media. I trust you to offer the best treatment plan options. And it doesn't mean we don't gather data, doesn't mean we don't check in, it doesn't mean we don't support and train, all those things. But in order to, and this, by the way, Jill, coming from someone who was the queen, founding member, and president of Control. And let that be a great indicator. If you recognize in yourself this hyper controlling emotional addiction, mania over controlling. So what that looked like for me was, if I want anything done, I got to do it myself. Or I've got to constantly be vigilant about every component in my practice at all times so that I can make sure it's being done. And when that is happening, recognize there's a lack of self-trust and there's a lack of trust of others around you. And none of us can do this all alone. And imperative, I think we actually might have talked about this once in another podcast episode, but imperative in our growth personally and as a practice and as a team is mistakes.
Yeah.
It's actually imperative in our growth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get anywhere without fumbling and making a mistake, because that's where the greatest learning is.
Yes.
But it requires trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that fostering that sense of self-trust gives you permission to trust others around you. And now let's take it even one step further. You can trust your patients.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. If I can trust my patients, does that give them permission to make mistakes? Absolutely. And it doesn't make it mean anything about you. So in ortho, so this is my experience in ortho, I remember I used to take it it used to pain me and make me feel so like I couldn't trust myself as an orthodontist when I had a patient whose treatment didn't work out perfectly. Even though intellectually I knew they live with their teeth 24 hours a day and they only see me once every 6 weeks for 30 minutes. But recognizing that I can trust my patient to have the autonomy of their own decisions. I can trust them. I can trust myself. And it's okay if there are mistakes along the way. And then we just get to choose again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to keep trying or do you not want to keep trying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to have straight teeth or is this really good enough for you? And the amount of peace that gave me, that once again, lack of self-trust, it's thinking that someone outside of you knows better than you do.
Mm-hmm.
When we allow ourselves to let go of that and not have what other people's opinions define our self-worth, we actually allow ourselves enormous freedom.
Yes.
And we give ourselves permission to sleep at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What a great way to end this, because that's just, again, just beautiful. I love it. And it just really brings it all together. And if we can just trust ourselves and be able to get to that point, that then you can trust your team. And then you can trust your patients and you can just give yourself that freedom that I just don't think a lot of us have. I don't think a lot of us give ourselves permission to be free, to be you, to be who you are and to feel what you need to feel. And
yes,
I love it. I love it. As we finish up, again, another fantastic episode. Thank you, so much for just sharing all of your great insight here. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or learn more about your coaching or find out about some of the retreats, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yeah, at www.thebizofhappiness.com or the Business of Happiness podcast.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. If you remember from last time, I like to finish us up with a little speed round. So are you ready for a speed round?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Here we go.
What is your go-to productivity tool?
Ooh, it's a good one. My go-to productivity tool. I would say, that's a good one. Honestly, this is going to sound redundant. It really is sleep. I keep coming back to it, but it really is. I am so much more productive when I get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And so my bedtime routine becomes a productivity tool for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I made a choice to prioritize sleep a couple years back, and I'm pretty solid on that. And I would agree. I think it makes all the difference in the world. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. Definitely. Those are my best hours of the day, the morning.
Yep. That's great. What was the first job you ever had?
Oh, I love the question. I rented an ice cream truck, drove that, the one with the jingle, and drove that ice cream truck all around the soccer fields in the summer and sold ice cream. And oh my gosh, I had so much fun. It blew bubbles out the back. It was such a fun job, but did not realize how competitive the market is. It was a fascinating learning experience.
I bet. You were a little entrepreneur on top of first job, huh?
Yeah. Except instead of the jingle, I played Rusted Root and Fish. I don't know if any of you, I'm dating myself now, but literally that's the music I played driving around the neighborhood.
That is awesome. That's great. Yeah. What would you say has been the most tremendous impact on your professional life?
I would say my family, my kids, my brother. The people in my life who matter most have most certainly been the biggest impact on my professional life. And I think the thing that I keep returning to is that life is too short not to do what you love and not to be happy. And that's what my family has taught me. And that has most certainly impacted my professional life, is constantly asking myself, is this bringing me joy?
Mm-hmm.
And if it isn't, then I pivot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think more of us should ask ourselves that question. Is this bringing me joy? All right. And then as we finish up, what's one business skill you think everyone should have?
Meditation. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because I saw the impact it had on my ability to be a successful business owner. And quick fun fact about the Business of Happiness podcast, it started by interviewing highly successful business owners who were also happy. And I wanted to know, what is the common thread? Where is it where you can be enormously outwardly successful and also feel really fulfilled and happy? And the common thread, all these incredibly successful people, was a meditative practice, practice to quiet their mind, to get quiet with themselves and block out the noise and opinion from outside of themselves. And for sure, I've been meditating now. My daughter is 12, almost 13, for 13 years. And I do not miss a day because I recognize the impact it has on my outward success for sure.
I love Tarryn. Once again, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs. This was a great episode. I know, again, our listeners just are like, oh, this is wonderful. So thank you. I hope to have you on again.
Looking forward to it. Great to see you, Jill.
Yep. You see.